Andy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
So we are going to be talking about marketing automation today, but before we get started, and I know a little bit about you now just purely from doing a bit of research, but I am interested in hearing the story in a bit more detail. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Andy, what you currently do and the journey that got you to here?
Yeah, sure. Well, currently I'm Chief Commercial Officer at RedEye. So we're an AI-driven marketing automation platform. And how did I get here? So I started with a marketing degree, and that led me on to sort of technology sales. So I worked within Hewlett Packard. Now, I was actually there during the dot-com boom bust. So that was quite an exciting sort of year, watching, everything absolutely explode. People are buying £20 million server farms, preparing for, the internet to take over everything. And then there was a realization it wasn't going to that next month. So then everything sort of seemed to stop from there. And then after that, obviously, we got a more gradual growth that we've seen then accelerate. And so what happened at that stage is everybody in that business was talking about web services as that big next thing. Everybody knew they had the internet to sell over, but they had no idea what that meant. They had no idea how to do it. They had no idea how many people were actually coming to their websites and things. So, all those web services started to spring up. So that's when I went out and looked for sort of a business that specialised in that area. And so I researched a number of those, and I joined RedEye very much as a startup. So that was 20 years ago. And at RedEye, we've sort of developed a lot over that time. So we've always had data at the heart of what we do. And we began our lives in sort of web analytics and sort of really looking at customer data. And then over the years, we've developed more ways of actioning that. So, we bought one of the UK's largest email marketing businesses in 2004. We've bought a big usability and conversion rate optimization business after that. And all of these things have added the layers that have got RedEye to where we are today. And that's where we are now, very much focused, marketing automation, using AI with a huge raft of experts that essentially help people get the most out of that software and those technologies. And we work with a lot of well-known brands, so lots of experience of working with businesses in lots of different sectors over that 20 years.
It's incredible because you just don't meet people today that have been in their job for 20 years. So first of all, my hat comes off to you for that. That's incredible. And I'm guessing that this has changed so much just because of the space that you're in, the acquisitions that you guys have made compared to where the business was 20 years ago compared to today.
Yeah, completely. And that's what's been great, watching a business grow from almost a startup phase to where we are today, very well established or a leader in our space. So no, it's been brilliant. And it's great to watch, as you go along those steps. There's so many different layers that you have to put into a business as you grow up throughout that. So it's been a great journey, and lots more time ahead. And RedEye is one of those businesses where it is like a big family as well. So we've got a number of people who've been there for many years, and we've also got a number of sort of new experts that we've brought in over time as well. So it's got a good blend of that sort of established and new. You have people like me who are part of the furniture, essentially.
There's nothing wrong with being a good part of the furniture. The sofa is the most important thing in my living room anyway. But I think that's fantastic. So when we're talking about marketing automation, and to give people a bit more of a sense of this, I think it's important for especially smaller businesses don't necessarily realize what you can automate. So I'm wondering if we can start there by just talking about some of the really basic and simple things that people can do within their businesses, especially in the early days when maybe they don't have the resources or the time or the budgets to pay for these things. But there's so much out there, isn't there?
Yeah, completely. And I think probably I would go back to those sort of early building blocks. So I'd almost, before you do anything, you've almost got to try and pick out what you want to achieve. So, I hear a lot on your podcast, people saying similar things. It's about, first of all, putting those objectives in place and then working out how do you measure those. So you know what you're trying to, influence before you make those changes. But obviously then there are those bedrocks that you put in place. So start simply, as you've just said, and especially if you're sort of an SME, you never want to go and try and put 200 campaigns live, over a month and get, run before you can walk. So I think a welcome campaign's absolutely crucial to have in place. So, research that we've seen, only 50% of businesses actually have an automated welcome campaign. But customers, 75% of people say they expect to receive a welcome email as soon as they sign up. So, the stats tell you straight away there's a disconnect there. Another good one that now, most platforms that you can sign up with will help you get a basket abandonment campaign live as well. Don't leave those baskets that have been abandoned. Use that technology to follow up on those. And then I'd probably say actually start to do some rudimentary segmentation of your campaigns before you send them out. So, the days of the monthly newsletter are completely gone. We have to now try and really tailor those comms to our different customer groups. So, for your business, try and work out what are those key customer groups you've got and try and specialize those messages to each of those accordingly.
I think it's always important. You said it again, starting with the objectives in mind is incredible. And the amount of businesses that I still meet today, and even established, businesses that are making money, like making good money, big money. But you'll ask them, okay, well, what are you looking for? And they'll be like, that growth. And you're like, that, okay, cool. What does success look like in terms of that growth? And they'll be like that, well, we'll be bigger, or we'll be making more money. And you're like that, okay, how much more? Like, what's the number? How many clients do you need to make that happen? What's the time frame realistically to do that with? And you realize that if it can happen in big companies where there are the budgets to have people looking at these things, you're in real trouble when you're in SME territory and you're in real startup phase where there is no money. Most of the time, there is no time either. You're busy juggling, as I like to say, spinning plates. It's complex. It's hard. There's a lot to do in a business. But it is one of those key elements, right? How many leads do you need to be able to convert a customer? And people are like that, well, I don't have that kind of information. It's like, okay, it's going to take a bit of time, but you need to look back over it. And how many people did you talk to? How many people asked for a proposal, or how many people inquired about it? How many people did you convert? Whatever it might be. But we all have data points, no matter how rudimentary it is, right?
Completely right. And once you've got that data, then you've got those building blocks to start to develop from. So, if you've got 5 or 6 campaigns live, you can analyze those, you can see how they're performing, you can run tests, and you can very quickly work out which of those campaigns are delivering you the value that then determine you invest more in time and effort into improving those programs further. And that is the best way to build these things up iteratively. So you almost, you're building up that network of campaigns and those customer journeys over time based on what is delivering you the best value. And also making sure you're putting yourself in your customer's shoes. So you're actually, making sure you're delivering those things that are going to help them to buy from you. Because we are, with more than ever, those online relationships are crucial. We were all locked up for a very long period, so we didn't have, shops to go and engage with. So we've all become absolutely hooked on what we're receiving and how we're interacting with businesses online. So, the expectations are miles more than they've ever been. People will not accept simplicity from you anymore. They want to be spoken to, because you know them. And if they bought from you a few times, they feel like they've got that relationship with you and they demand it.
It always interests me, like when I talk to people about what we do as an agency or whatever else, and people will be like that, oh, are you the reason why, I see that advert for a pair of shoes or whatever? And you'll be going, did you ever look at the pair of shoes? And they go, yeah, like I looked at it a couple of times because I really want them, but I haven't got around to buying them yet. And you're like that. Yeah, that's how this works. But to me, I've always looked at it the other way around. Like I get targeted pretty well because of what I'm interested in. And you can imagine, I look at tons of different marketing technology platforms, SaaS products, one thing and another. So I'm constantly being bombarded by new social media tools and new marketing automation platforms or whatever else it might be, which is perfect for me. I very rarely have a pair of shoes come up on my on my adverts for obvious reasons. But it is all part of that idea of these are, and again, I know people have issues with data and data privacy and all of these kind of elements, but these are the ways that things are going. Like you said, we're looking for a personalized experience. We're looking for that kind of tap on the window moment of, yeah, you remember these that you looked at but you didn't get around to finishing, or a holiday booking or a hotel for something or whatever it might be. And these campaigns, the second reason, like for people to bear in mind, as much as they might complain about it, but these campaigns work. That's why people keep doing them. And I think that's something that's really hard for people, especially smaller businesses, when they're still trying to figure this stuff out. They almost feel like maybe it's too much, or maybe they shouldn't be pushing down these routes, or, but I don't like privacy rules or issues with Facebook and knowing what I like and one thing or other, so I shouldn't do that for my business. And it's the reality of the world that we live in today, right? We need to do these things. We need to have abandoned cart emails being pushed out to users. We need things that make sure that we get people to carry on engaging, because we are all busy. And, we were talking about this when we first jumped on, right? It's happened to us before that you're on a call, you're waiting for somebody to join, you go off and look at another tab, and then you forget about that tab being open, and you come back, somebody's waiting. Oops, sorry. Like, it happens to me all the time. So I recognize the fact that I'll start looking at something, start considering shopping something, and eventually it gets to the point where I have so many tabs, I think easier to close everything down and start afresh than to look through all of them.
Yeah, completely right. And there's a lot of reasons why people do struggle to do these things, just as you've said. And it is a case of just unpicking those with each challenge that you have, because people do expect it. And your competitors are going to be doing it as well. You might wait 6 months because you weren't quite sure whether to do something, and your competitors grabbed a huge share of your market by getting these things automated and getting people hooked on receiving them. Because it's an experience. That's what we're trying to create. And I think there is a danger sometimes that people chase the money too much. We're all here. Profit line, revenue is all vital, but it is also, to get there, there's the other elements. Customer experience is crucial. People need to enjoy that experience when buying from you. You have to keep them coming back. You have to keep giving them good reasons and exchanging value with them to bring them to your site and get them to look at your products. If you don't do that, other people again will, and you're one click away from somebody going elsewhere. So that they're all reasons why it is really important to do. And it's about finding the right people within your business who understand that as well. And I think that's a struggle that some SMEs do have. That they can be very light on resource, and you can have an owner, senior directors maybe doing 3 or 4 jobs that would be done in a larger business, so that does become harder. So often it is good to try and find those people in the business who have a real aptitude and a hunger to help improve that customer experience, and that can really make a difference. Something that I always recommend as well to SMEs, it's workshops work really well to pull this sort of idea generation across a business, because if you don't have that sort of expert, you can get together 5 or 6 people from different departments who are influenced by what happens within the e-commerce section, and basically understand from them what they feel would make the biggest difference. You get someone from customer experience, you get someone from customer services, maybe from the call center, somebody from finance, somebody who works on those applications day in and day out and understands where people are dropping off, and you get them together and you get them to think from what's stopping people going through those journeys. How can we help them? How can we make that a better experience? They're great ways that you can get a huge amount of value from just a 2-hour session to get some ideas for where to start.
I almost shout at a lot of customers that we have or have had over the years. Sorry to anyone listening. The amount of people also that don't talk to their customers. And I find this amazing. Like the number one resource for me, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling a product, a SaaS business, a pair of shoes, a holiday, I don't care. If somebody's giving you their hard-earned cash, I want to understand why they gave me their hard-earned cash. What was it about what we said, or what was it about how we performed, or what was it, for our business, it's all about sort of monthly recurring. We do things now as 12-week, like quarterly sprints as an agency. So it gives people a genuine reason to stay with us. If you like what we did for those 12 weeks, you'll stay. If you feel like we didn't deliver, you'll leave. Fine, perfect. It works well for both sides. But the main thing is that, what did we do well? What could we have done better? Where are the parts that you felt that we fell down? Where were the parts where the systems could be easier for you? What could we implement differently that would change the experience of working with us? And that's just an example for me as an agency. And again, we're service based. But on products, it's the same thing. Ask people. And to be honest, you get great results from surveys and stuff by offering a free 50 quid voucher or whatever it might be. Win a free 50 quid voucher for the site. You're giving people another reason to come back and spend more money on your website. But you'd be amazed what will happen if you reach out to people and say, like, hey, we'd love to have a chat. Would you be willing to give me 10 minutes, 15 minutes? People will tell you a lot.
Completely agree with you. And I think that is a huge change that is coming. I think, there's a lot being talked about that zero party data. So, actually having conversations with customers and asking them to tell you what they would like to know about, getting them to tell you what they would like to buy next. That is data that they're openly telling you and giving you their permission to use. And there's no better hand raised than somebody saying, I'm going to look at these products for Christmas. Then you can use that data to target those customers with those sorts of products in the lead up to Christmas. I think that's a huge thing that's coming. I think that's another thing that technology is going to help people to have those conversations on a more regular basis. So that's another big aspect we do for a lot of our clients is, having those campaigns that drive people to site to buy, but also there's widgets within those that are letting people gather more information about a customer, so you're slowly building up that picture of what somebody's interested in. And there's loads of different ways. You can use surveys, you can use polls, you can use microsites, just asking some open questions that you can then, from a data point of view, you can actually automate things that follow up off of that and then make that journey more personalized to what those people have asked for. Even going down to like clothing sizes, colours, the types of outfits you're looking for. You can be really specific with that, but once you've collected enough data, you can actually start to make a real difference from it. But I think a key thing is with that zero-party data, if you're asking for it, people, you're then building that expectation you're going to use it. So if people do start to do that sort of data collection, you've got to make sure you are using it.
It's interesting, actually, talking about the sizing and stuff. It just made me think of, I think the website's called Threads. And I signed up to this at some point a couple of years ago. And I was just like that, look, I don't really like going clothes shopping because I don't. And obviously it curates like these sort of styles and one thing and another. And obviously based on some initial questions, and then you put in your initial sizes and all of this kind of stuff. And then literally the experience is super fluid and easy because you're not messing about with your sizes and stuff because it already knows your sizes. It's picking out whole outfits, so you're now not buying a piece of clothing and having to go somewhere else to think of another piece. And each time you chose an outfit and you bought, it would learn and it would start to bring in similar kind of outfits. So it's not constantly pushing the wrong thing to the wrong people, but actually it's just a constantly evolving system that's actually getting better for me as an experience, rather than the other way around, i.e. I have to go traipsing around the internet and figure out what it is that I want to buy. Now, if I said that, my girlfriend would say, you're an absolute animal. What's wrong with you? Let's go and do 15 shops in a row and buy something from each of them. And then we might take some of it back or find some of it in a cupboard a few weeks later or months later. But that's each person's different, right? But the idea of that technology, if you know that someone, when they come onto your site and is constantly shopping in a particular size, you've got that data, right? How hard is it then to be able to implement that? And this, I think, would be a question actually for you. How hard is it to implement that data when you are an SME and when you maybe don't have the development scale on the back end to be able to push out these kind of changes?
Yeah, it's very straightforward because you let the technology partner take care of that, and that's what we've built systems that allow us to do. So, it starts with some very basic tagging that you can add to things like your Google Tag Manager or whatever platform you might use. We'll also take feeds from your back end that you can basically then use to build segments and target people across off. So it can be done in many different ways, and we're very flexible so that we actually will help a business to use the data that they've got rather than give fixed formats of it must come in this way. So yeah, it's about being flexible and really helping those businesses because the truth is there's very few businesses that have data in the same way anyway. Businesses will build up data over time. They will have silos. They will have use different sorts of systems, and that's where businesses, such as ourselves and others that are out there, are able to go in and help you pull that together, help you do an audit of where your most actionable data is, so that essentially you're taking those bits that you can use to then put into that system. And then once it's in there, it's all very straightforward to interrogate and build segments that you can then use for sort of automation and for your regular campaigns that you're sending out. So yeah, it's getting it set up in the right way for your business, and that's where people like us try and help.
So where does the AI come into this? This is the all-inclusive and the all big cost conversation. At the moment, I'm having lots of conversations with people that are now developing these systems where AI can help take certain data points and show particular courses of action, let's say. But how does that work for the marketing automation?
Yeah, so the way we work was there's different levels of different levels of AI that we can use. So what we've built is we've built a set of specific models that are used at different stages of the customer life cycle. So they're ones that are typical for most businesses that they can be used within there. So to give you some examples, so we have a predictive frequency manager. So essentially it will help you, it will learn from your customer's behavior, and then it will help to predict when a customer is most next likely to interact with an email. So essentially you can then overlay on your other segments who are most likely to interact with those. So you can essentially then set the frequency based on how likely they are to open those next emails. So, in simplicity, you can look at people who love everything you send and opening everything, and you can set frequency for those guys differently to people who might just look on a weekend, or might just look a couple of times a month when there's a particular offer. So you can start to tweak those programs so you're sending the right volumes to the right people. And that's a great example with everything digitally. Sometimes leaving people alone actually helps your performance. It's that old farming term of leaving the field fallow for a period. So if somebody's not buying, you don't want to just beat them over the head until they do. You want to leave them alone and give them the right message at the right time. Some people aren't ready to buy those outfits every single afternoon. Some will buy them when they're ready to buy them, and you've got to do that, because people get tired when they're overmailed. But and the other models, things like second purchase, so trying to predict when somebody's most likely to make that second purchase and what that might be. And we're seeing that's a huge thing we've seen through the pandemic. I think again through the lockdowns, many businesses have had a massive increase in their one-time purchase figures. I think a lot of your listeners will probably be recognizing that within their data, and if they don't, go and check your data, and I'm sure it will be very similar. So it's about using that data to try and pick out those people that we can get through to buy a second time, and then a third time, and a fourth, because it's about, again, once you've got that frequency of purchase, somebody's a lot more likely to be a regular customer. Other ones, things like churn. So again, that's a really valuable model. And where the churn model works is what it tries to do is it predicts when people are going to start lapsing. It's a lot harder to win somebody back when they've already gone. When the horse has bolted and shot across the field and it's in the distance, it's a lot harder to get it back than as it's just leaving the stable. And that's what the predictive churn model's about. It predicts when people are starting to show those things. They're not opening as many emails. They're not looking at products. Maybe they've only bought one thing where they used to buy 3 or 4 things. And so it starts to work out those changes in behaviour and allows you to really focus on those sorts of customers. So we got a great case study with All Beauty, so the fragrance and beauty specialist, and they through a predictive churn model, they were actually able to increase sales by 415% and increased revenue by 519% for the customers that they retained. So massive improvement there for a really good business, but just showing what you can do by using AI in the right way. And again, and you can go to the ends of the earth with AI. So you can invest massive amounts in building very specific models that will learn your own business in in a specific way for you, but I would start quite simply, and I would start with some of those bigger challenges that you can then use it for in a very sort of confined way that, again, improves upon specific objectives and metrics.
There's so many things that you mentioned here, so I'm going to pull you up on a couple of them just to see if I can go into more detail. This is also just out of pure interest. I'm renowned for a rabbit hole or two. In terms of, obviously, we're talking about open rates and everything else, and obviously there's a big shift coming in the next version of iOS and for Mac, and that's got quite a few email marketers a little bit concerned, let's say, whereby if the privacy settings are set, it will automatically mark every email as opened, whether as soon as it's downloaded, right? How do you think this will affect, and I'm not talking about just for you guys, I'm talking in general for the market, right? It's going to cloud certain stats, especially for smaller players and for smaller businesses.
Yeah, without question, open rate will change once that happens. But again, we've been having things like this for many, many years. So Google's preloaded the open GIF previously, so these changes are coming, and we welcome them. Again, everything regarding privacy in this industry, we have to absolutely welcome, and we have to work within that. So ways you can do it is that the models will be changed to take clicks in a similar way. They already do. There are already other data points, so it'll be clicks, visits. There'll be lots of other data points within there. You would never use just one anyway. So you just change the weighting of what is actually used within the model. So there's some very simple ways of doing that. But it's a very, very, very good question, and it's a big one that a lot of people are talking about at the moment.
It's just, I guess, there's shifts, right? I've been around for only 13 years running this agency, so not quite as long as you, but the shifts have been astronomical anyway, right? Everything, like what we can do today and how easily we can do it. I mean, God bless the good old days, but having a 2 megabyte internet connection seemed like you had made it. That's it. As far as you were concerned, you were NASA headquarters and ready for launch. Nowadays, not quite the same.
Do you remember those dial-up noises when we used to log into the internet in the early days? But I actually, one that will give you a good one in this conversation is actually my first month at RedEye. We worked on a report around the death of the cookie. So those conversations have been going on for 20 years. So I'm sure those conversations will carry on for many, many more. So, and I think we've seen recently with the potential changes with the UK government, where potentially the cookie legislation, how it's adopted may well change again. So I think as consumers, let alone digital marketers, I think we're all sick to death of cookie banners, aren't we? So if you were an alien coming down and having a look at a website, it would be something you would question how we've got to that situation, wouldn't you?
But it is a tough one, right? Because the GDPR rules and everything else, it's not just that they wanted to put this in place, and I'm all for it. Data privacy, if you're doing something right and you've got a good brand and you're delivering real value to people, I do believe people will keep buying. You don't need a smart way of hammering into them, like you said earlier, right? People do connect with brands. But the biggest, hardest part of all this was it was such a complex process, especially for SMEs, to try and understand what they needed to actually do to be GDPR compliant. And it got to the point where I think it was only last year, the ICO's website failed to comply with GDPR terms that they're there to enforce. And I mean, if that doesn't sum it up perfectly, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I always remember they published the graph of their web analytics tracking, and they showed how everything was tracking, and then they made the change. And so yeah, but we're in a learning stage, aren't we? We are really, again, in 20 years from now, we'll look back at the dark ages that we're in now, when everything's automated, everything's AI driven, and we'll think, how did they cope in those days? They must have worked themselves to death. They had to do so much, as opposed to the machine just runs it for us now. But yeah, we're still learning, and we will have to keep changing how these things work, because it's got to be great for the consumer, it's got to be good for the businesses, it's got to be the right thing for privacy. So, but yeah, I personally think we're still at the start of that journey. But I think the legislation that's come in will help us get there, because you start with a point of we've got to do the right thing, and as long as that's what we all think about, then we're going to go in the right direction.
The right thing that brings the right value to everybody, that's the real win, right? That's the perfect situation that we're all hoping for.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you could say to anybody listening right now, no matter what stage they're at, what's the most important thing that they should be doing in terms of making sure that they're helping their digital marketing do as well as it can be? What would it be?
Yeah, I'd definitely say, focus on your data, look at your data, make sure you are taking good action from your data. And I think where you would want to get to is, for your particular business, what are those golden nuggets of data that will drive you the best value? Because there is no one size fits all. In the same way as, everybody's business has that reason why people buy from it. Within your data, there are nuggets of information that you can use to sell more to those customers who love your product, and then use that to entice more customers. So it's about having that hunger to really find that stuff within your data. And a lot of businesses and a lot of very bright people within businesses shy away from the data, and things become more gut feel, or because they've done this before in another business, and I think we've always got to use those ideas, but it's all got to come from a data decision making process.
I think that's huge. And again, there's so many great tools, even as starting points for small businesses out there. And you mentioned earlier on, even something as simple as Google Analytics, the depth and width of information that you will get for free, and the insights that you can drive from that makes a huge difference, I think. And again, too many people don't look at the data. What's nice about the data is it's black and white. Sometimes there are some grey, but it's mostly black and white. But I do think it's really important for everyone, and I do think that's a great tip. So there you go, guys and girls. If you're listening and you haven't got Google Analytics on your website or some other form of tracking, that's your first step. Andy, thank you so much. Before we wrap up, where can people find you, and how can people find out more about RedEye?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn, so just Andy Stockwell RedEye. You'll find me. This is what I look like for anybody who sees us on on YouTube, so it will be quite easy to find. And then redeye.com, we're very simple to find, and lots of the sort of case studies we've talked about are on there. We publish a lot of that sort of thing from the great clients who like to talk about the good work we do for them. So yeah, lots of information on there about us, and yeah, please reach out. I'd love to tell you guys more.
And you do have some resources on there as well, don't you? So people can find more info, more ideas, more ways of doing things. So it does look like it's got a lot of content on there that would be very useful for people.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Andy, thank you so much for your time, and absolute pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you. You too. Really good to talk to you. Speak again.